Hello everyone. In the last video, we talked about trimming layers, setting in and out points for a specific piece of footage, and being able to slide down the footage on the layer. This is extremely helpful when we're trying to when we're trying to reduce the amount of work that After Effects does while it's rendering the final renders or for previews. The reason for that is because After Effects will try to render anything that is under the time marker, whether it's visible or not visible. So if you have keyframes in the background images and those images are not visible in the actual composition window, After Effects doesn't care. It's still going to try to render that information because it's information that you passed to that particular layer. Therefore, if I have a keyframe over here that does not have any footage to be activated under, because I have trimmed that layer, it will actually try to render that even if I don't see it. So it's something, when we reduce the size, the in and out points of layers, it's a way to indicate, for us to indicate to After Effects that we don't need that area rendered. It's basically going to save us time in rendering in previews and for a final render. Another thing that is extremely helpful is to render the overall size of my project. So sometimes I might want to start a composition, as you have seen so far in the different videos. We have worked with compositions that are usually longer than what I actually intend to export. So in this case, for example, I have my composition window be 10 seconds. What if I wanted it to be 5 seconds? Well, I can do the trimming in two ways. The most straightforward way to do it would be to go to the composition settings and reduce the time, the length of my composition. So for that, I can go either compositions. And by the way, I'm picking up where I left off on the previous video. So I'll go composition settings, and then I can change the composition duration here by changing to, say, for example, I want this to be 5 seconds. I would enter 0, 0, 0, 5, 0, 0. That tells me it's 0 minutes, 0 minute, 5 seconds, 0 frames. When I do that, it tells me over here, you're entering 5 seconds worth of timeline. So if I say OK, you'll notice that now my animation, my composition is 5 seconds. That's one way to do it. Let me undo that really quick, Control Z. And you'll notice that I still see 5 seconds here. But you will also notice that this line up here has got shrunk. The one, not the work area, but the tiny one up at the top. That is your navigation bar. And basically what that is it works along with this bar down here, which allows you to zoom in to the different sizes of whether you want to see the timeline in seconds, frames, or however small you want to see it. So if you shrink that, you're basically expanding your timeline to frame per frame visual. And this does not affect your rendering time, nor does it affect the length of your time. It simply allows you to zoom into your frame view. But if you want to see the entirety of your composition, the entirety of your timeline for that composition, you need to stretch it out all the way so that the endpoint is over here. And so we went back to the way we were before, which is 10 seconds in length. The second way to trim a composition is by using my work area. So let's say, for example, I want my composition to start 0 seconds right here where it's at, but I want my composition to end at 5 seconds. So I can go ahead and move my work area endpoint to the 5 second mark. The way I would do this is by placing my time marker at 5 seconds and pressing the N key on the keyboard. Remember that shortcut, IBON? So I'm making use of that to speed up my workflow. So now that I have done that, or I can always drag it if I need to. So now that I have set that up, I can right click over that work area bar, and from the options, I have trim to work area. Or it allows me also to extract the work area to something else or lift it. These are all terms that you have heard if you have been working on video editing. So trimming and lifting are things, and we're going to be talking about those as we get deeper into the course. So right now, all I want to do from this is trim the work area. Now there's something called create protected region from work area, which is extremely useful if you want to use footage in pre-compositions. And like I said, pre-composing this way is something we're going to be seeing at the end of this module. So we're going to be talking about creating that protected region for work area when we get to that point. And this is when you change the speed of playback of a composition inside another composition. This is a way to maintain your values the way you intend them to be within the pre-composition. So right now I just want to trim the work area, and when I do that, you'll notice that now I have the 5 seconds of animation that I had set up with my work area or 5 seconds of timeline, and basically my work area has been trimmed. So this is the way you trim layers, and well, trim layers you saw in the previous video. This is the way you trim the actual composition itself. Now, another thing that you have that is extremely useful to you to work with, and that makes your life easier, we saw in the very first class, actually, the second class, I'm sorry, but we didn't dig into detail into it, which is your Keyframe Assistant. So the Keyframe Assistant is basically a tool that allows you to select a specific keyframe and right-click on it, and over here you see the Keyframe Assistant on the flyout. Remember the ECs out, ECs in? Those are the options for the Keyframe Assistant, but you will notice that we have other options under that Keyframe Assistant that make our life easy if we want to use them. So for example, if I want to convert audio to keyframes, that means I can change the values of my properties within a layer based on the levels of volume of an audio file that I can import, which is extremely useful. It allows you to animate to the beats or to the sound of an audio file. We're going to see this when we talk about sound in about 4 weeks. Then you can also do something called convert expressions to keyframes. Expressions are a language that works with After Effects. It's based on a language that is similar to ActionScript, for those of you who have taken my my Adobe Animate class, or JavaScript if you have done web development. So it is based on that same format, extremely useful, but we don't dig a lot in this particular semester. We don't dig a lot into it. I will introduce you to it, how to access it, and how to script. I will show you how to do some scripts, but we're not going to go deep into it. That can be an entire class of its own. And as a matter of fact, it is an industry. There are companies like School of Motion or Envato, which focus on creating a marketplace for these things, for scripts, and you can go out and purchase scripts. And actually, that is something that a lot of people use today, or a lot of people go by, and they spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to work with these scripts because they just don't know off the bat. So I'm going to teach you the basics on how things work so that you have an understanding before you actually go out and start purchasing things, which you can. But again, this is only if you actually intend for this to become a tool on your tool bag for your work. Then we also have other options down here, such as exponentially scaling things. If you're creating scaling values for things over time, that actually helps to create more natural scaling. RPF camera import refers to being able to import 3D camera data from other programs such as 3ds Max or Maya or C4D, Cinema 4D. You can also sequence layers and time reverse layers. So for example, if I select all of my layers here, I'm going to shift select them. That means I'm going to click on the first one up here, and then I'm going to press shift key on the keyboard and select the bottom one. You'll notice that everything gets selected. I can go to that Keyframe Assistant, but now I don't have anything to click on. So how do I access it from the menus? It will be under Animation, Keyframe Assistant. And you'll notice that the only option that you have available to you is Sequence Layers. So you will be sequencing layers in the following way. Let me go ahead and reduce the length of these two layers here so that we have shorter layers. And then I'm going to select all of the layers. Then I'm going to go to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Sequence Layers, and you'll notice that the thing tells you, okay, I want to sequence them, but how do you want them to overlap for a certain amount of time? If yes, then click overlap and determine how many frames or how many seconds you want it to be, and whether you want to transition through dissolving or cross dissolving. So those would be the options. If you click OK, boom, they get stacked up in transition in a sequence format, which is what that would do for you. So Keyframe Assistant helps you quite a lot in terms of how you can manipulate those layers in your timeline, and how to actually set up things either at the keyframe level or the way they interact with each other. That sequencing, by the way, is something that I'm going to show you during class on how to create a very quick slideshow for, let's say, for a wedding or things like that. If you actually do photography, it's always great to add a little short video that showcases all the images that you shot so that the client is impressed by what you're doing. And you can actually use it as bookmarks for an actual overall video that you can showcase at a post-wedding meeting or something like that, it always works great. So we're going to be using that sequencing assistant in the near future.